Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I can't see you. I don't know why that's a thing, but I can hear you.
Yeah, I'm not sure why you can't see me because I have over 1,000 followers, so I should be able to go live normally. But
that's okay.
however, so I wanted to talk about the abortion argument, and it's not necessarily that I'm pro-life, but I think there's this moral difference, and I don't think I think the argument that people consent to have like another life dependent upon them is actually a pretty convincing argument. So like, are you familiar with Judith Thompson's argument?
Yeah, hers is the one about like if someone like comes in the middle of the night and like attaches someone to you.
Yeah, a famous violinist. Yeah, you get attached to a famous violinist, and they need your. I think she uses kidneys, and like you're the only match in the world. But in that defense of abortion, there's no consent that is made in comparison to like. I think you do have an obligation if you do consent to say, you know, I will provide my kidneys, be tied up to this person via all these medical tubes for the next 9 months. I think you do have a moral obligation to therefore follow through on that.
Yeah, I mean, morally, maybe you'd want the person to do it. I'd like to think that if I'm like with the example I was going with the other guy, if I hit someone with my car and I'm the only person that could give blood to them, I like to believe that I would do that. I can say that I would, but obviously I won't know for sure unless I'm ever in that circumstance.
Yeah.
I think the question is whether or not it should be legal. Like, should you have the right to choose not to?
No, I don't think you should. I think if you cause harm to another person or you leaving, or, we could get into like some anti-natalist kind of argument with about like even being born causes somebody harm. But I think if you cause somebody to need something, I think you have a duty, a moral, and I think it should be legal duty to continue to maintain them.
So yeah, so let's stay on that point though. You hit someone with your car, right? You accidentally do it. You didn't do anything illegal. You just hit someone with your car. They need blood. Do you think you should be forced to give them blood?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I mean, I guess I fundamentally disagree, and I guess from there I would want to go to because most people would say no, but I guess from there where I would take the argument is that I don't think the zygote is the same as like a person, and like we can kind of go down that route if you want. But yeah, because like we seem to have a fundamental disagreement on bodily autonomy, and so then I guess I would want to go down the route of
I mean, I guess I'm more focused on the bodily autonomy thing because where life begins in the human zygote kind of just goes down this rabbit hole of various, Christians say it starts at conception, whatever. Some people say it begins when you're born, whatever. I don't, and like determining that middle point is very difficult.
Well, I don't even think it's a question. I mean, a zygote is alive. There's no question about that. But my rebuttal to that is that so is a sperm cell.
That's actually a gamete. A sperm cell is a gamete, not a zygote.
I know it's not a zygote. I said a zygote is alive, and I said so is a sperm cell.
Again, like I don't really want to get into that argument. But I think like the major difference on bodily autonomy is like the difference between the violinist case where you don't do anything to kind of consent to any repercussions. You're just randomly taken in the night and hooked up to this violinist to save his or her life. Is that when I think you get into a car, you should be willing to accept the repercussions of possibly, being forced to give up your bodily autonomy.
Really? Wait, so that's interesting. So you think by getting into a car, you should, legally speaking, be consenting to the idea that you will have to give up whatever organs someone might need if you get into an accident?
Or
so
whatever.
Let's say it was a kidney. Should you be forced to give up a kidney?
I want to specify it in one way. The person who is found to be the cause of the crash is only morally obligated to help the other person in whatever medical way necessary, and they should be forced to give up their bodily autonomy.
Yeah, I think so. Like people can be bad drivers. You know what I mean? It's not illegal to be a bad driver. Let's say You should have slowed down when you did. You know what I mean? Like some people, their reaction time just isn't good enough, and they hit someone.
Yeah, but I still think you knowing that you might possibly cause an accident by your own merits does warrant you to consent to any possible repercussions. If you speed, you are consenting to the possibility that you have a
We're not
speeding.
though,
But
like because you want to be really careful about making it analogous. That's why you don't like the violin one. So let's be careful with our analogies. Speeding is illegal. We're not talking about anything illegal here. So if we want to make it analogous, the person didn't do anything illegal. They were just driving in their car.
well, I think we're differing on an argument of what is versus what ought.
We're not.
I,
We're talking about what ought. We're talking about what should be. We're not talking about what is.
I think it ought to be that any damages, similar in liability, if you crash into somebody and break their back, your car insurance company or, what have you, yourself maybe, you are liable for the pain and damages to their life. And I think that should be extended to medical responsibilities. So if you're the only person in the world, which is a match for their kidneys or whatever, it really doesn't matter, that is needed to keep them alive, I think you should also be found responsible for that.
Yeah, I guess what I would say is that it's just a genuinely speaking, I think slippery slopes are used probably too much, like the term slippery slope. But I think that is a genuine slippery slope. If the state is mandating that people give up organs, I think that can go bad really quickly.
Well, it's a slippery slope fallacy. I'm only
So,
arguing.
so a slippery slope isn't necessarily a fallacy. If you can demonstrate that the slope is in fact slippery, it's not a fallacy. It's only a fallacy.
The only point I'm making is if you cause harm unto another, you must repay that. And you have a duty to continue that obligation.
I have no problem if you say that morally. If you morally say that, that's your prerogative. But legally speaking, I don't think the state should be forcing people to give up organs.
So why do you detach? Shouldn't our laws follow morality?
To a certain extent, but so for example, I think it's immoral to lie. Not in every circumstance, but broadly speaking, I think it's immoral to lie. Someone cheats on their partner and they lie about it. I think that's immoral. I don't think that should be illegal though.
Well, I mean, there are certain kinds of lies that are illegal, however, though.
Yeah, but I'm talking about a very specific one. That could be a very damaging one. Someone lying about cheating on their partner. That's pretty terrible. But that shouldn't be illegal.
Well, I would disagree with that. I would say it should, but I wouldn't necessarily consent to lies that don't end up harming anybody.
You think lying about cheating? You think that should be illegal? Like with what would you say, like prison, or like what would you say the penalty should be?
I mean, actually, I retract that. I would say lies which cause harm should be illegal.
That causes harm. There are people. I mean, marriages have been ruined because of those lies. It causes harm.
What?
It definitely causes harm. There are people that have had their entire relationships ruined because of those lies.
Yeah, but if it's harm to themselves, feeling guilty, I don't see any reason to penalize that. However, if your lie actively perpetuates and harms other people, I think your punishment should be in proportion to how much harm you caused other people.
So yeah, this I don't know what you're saying here. Cheating and lying about it can really hurt someone. That can cause a lot of harm.
Yeah, but you asked what I would. Well, are you saying like cheating as in like cheating on your partner?
Yeah.
Or what? Well,
I'm saying that my point is we don't have to go down this rabbit hole. I'm just saying that just because something is immoral, like cheating, that doesn't mean it should be illegal.
I think anything that causes harm to another being, a person specifically, should be illegal.
So anything that you view as, like I said, you seem to be saying that, but when I get into a specific, you're kind of running away from it a little bit. So something like, two people, they're married, they really care about each other. One of them engages in, they cheat. I think we both say that that's immoral. You broke your promise to your partner. You think that should be illegal though?
No, because that lie harms nobody.
It does. What are you talking about? That hurts a lot of people.
Who does it harm?
The person that got lied to.
Yeah, but if they never find out, then they're
Let's say
not.
they do.
I'm kind of making a utilitarian argument here.
I don't care. I'm saying, let's stay on this point though. Let's say they do find out.
Yeah, then they should be punished for that lie
With what?
in proportion to the harm that was caused. I mean, I don't have the equation in front of me. I'm sorry.
But anything. Let's say the proportion is deemed jail time. They should serve like a month in jail for cheating. Would you be okay with that?
Yeah, I'd be fine with that. Anything,
I think we just fundamentally disagree. I don't think just because something's immoral, I don't think that should be illegal. Certain things, but not everything.
I mean, ultimately, yeah, I guess we do have a fundamental ethical disagreement here where I believe the laws should line up with actual morality. And, I guess there is this problem within morality of assigning proper punishments and, so on and so forth to immoral acts. But ultimately, I think the law should align with morality.
I mean, we can say aligns. I mean, no one would deny that laws have a tendency to reflect morality. But do we want them to perfectly reflect to the extent that everything that we view as immoral must then be illegal? I don't think that's true.
I would say so. Like,
So let's say with like cheating or lying or just lying in general. Lying is immoral. Most people would say lying is immoral. Broadly speaking, I'm sure there are some lies that are okay, but broadly speaking, most people say lying is immoral. That shouldn't be illegal, though.
Well, I would say it depends on whether you're a deontologist or a utilitarian.
It doesn't.
No, because like lying, if you're lying, to save thousands of lives, let's just say, to make an extreme example, that is, from a utilitarian perspective, a good moral action. Whereas from a deontological perspective, lying in that circumstance, Kant has the murderer at the door, like some guy comes in and he's about to be murdered and he goes hides under the.
I'm sorry. This isn't a deontological versus utilitarian argument. Like, so for example, like speeding, you're not saying that like speeding should just only sometimes be illegal. You're saying it should always be illegal, right? Or are you saying that all laws should just kind of be dependent? There's no actual laws. It's all dependent on what their possible utility is.
Yeah, I would say the latter.
So you don't think there should be laws, really? You think it should all just kind of be dependent on like what potential implication it is?
Yeah, I would say that there is really only one. Actually, I'm not quite a full utilitarian. I would say that one.
Let's say drunk drives. Drunk driving doesn't necessarily hurt anybody. So from a utility aspect, let's say the person drunk drives, they get home safely, right?
Yeah.
Now, that didn't hurt anybody. They got home faster. But we still think drunk driving should be illegal, right? Because you're putting other people in potential harm. Even from a utilitarian aspect, you would say that person drunk driving actually didn't hurt anyone. There was no negative utility caused.
Yeah, because the ultimate utility of drunk driving is to reduce these deaths. Yes.
The ultimate utility of drunk driving laws is to reduce the drunk driving.
Yes.
That's different, though. That's a different thing, though. A utilitarian, though, if you're truly going down the utilitarian route, you would say, no, it shouldn't always be illegal.
But
because there is instances where drunk driving theoretically could not cause any negative utility.
But I think
they would say drunk driving is always wrong because you're putting other people potentially in harm. The utilitarian would say, well, it depends on the utility. Did they get more utility from drunk driving than they did from walking?
Yes, I suppose that's correct. I will concede that point. That's kind of arguable. And early in class today, we were actually talking about whether it's okay to go through a red light when nobody's there. But anyway, I think morality should line up with the laws. I mean, and that's my fundamental point of perspective.
But what is the issue that you run into, though, with some people's morality runs into other people's rights. So, for example, there are a lot of people that are religious that think that being gay is immoral. Do you think it would be good then to make that illegal? Of course not. Even though certain people's morality dictates that it's immoral, that doesn't mean it should be illegal. That doesn't mean gay marriage is illegal just because some people find it immoral.
This relies on like a subjectivist point of view of morality.
Yes, all morals are subjective. Yeah.
I fundamentally disagree with that.
What are you talking about? So to some person, being gay is immoral. Some people believe that. To other people, like myself, I don't think it's immoral. So obviously it's subjective because some people think that it's immoral. Some people think it's moral.
No, I believe that there is an objective moral fabric to the world. And yes, people have different subjective opinions on what it is, but nevertheless, there's ultimately an objective moral fabric. Sorry.
What does that mean though? Like if it's objective, like are these morals like written on a stone tablet somewhere? Like what does that mean for it to be objective?
You know, those who are Christian would say it comes from God. I myself am somewhat of a like Platonist, so I believe in the forms, and morality stems from that, and justice stems from that.
Sure, but let's be specific though. When you're saying that these morals are objective, I think that's a big claim because you're saying that there is some sort of measurable, provable way that we can show that these things are objective. I don't think you can. I think it's I think this is based on preference.
You know, like I said, but you would say like murder, regardless of cultural perspective, is always going to be wrong, right?
So, I mean, definitionally, like people refer to murder, they say the unjust killing of another person. But even this, you can get to semantics. So, for example, you could have a pacifist, a complete and total pacifist, that thinks all killing is wrong, all violence. But then also you would have someone that says, well, no, I think self-defense is okay. Even though a pacifist would say, no, even if someone is about to hurt you, it is immoral to take another life. But then some people would say that it's not. So even something that should be as basic as like murder, there is still subjectiveness within that.
Yeah, but I still believe that there is an objective moral of what just is.
How though? Where is this objectivity coming from?
I guess you could take it from German idealists, Descartes, whatever your flavor might be.
No, I know that there are people that might say things. I'm saying that what makes it objective though
is that through reason, and not to sound too Ben Shapiro-ish, and logic, we can determine what this greater form of justice is and what its properties are and how to assign them.
But we can logically deduce a lot of things. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're right. So it is logical. Like for example, like might makes rights. You can say that that's logical. Like it logically follows that might could be a good thing. Just because somebody is stronger, that they can do what they want. That is logical, but that doesn't mean it's right. That's something like we can logically deduce something doesn't mean that it's right.
Yeah, no, I think I think it's Thrasymachus and makes this argument, but no, ultimately though, we should be striving for this greater objective form of justice and the good rather than assigning.
Where does the objectivity come from? If you're saying that we would like to, as a world, have some sort of unity in our moral framework, that's a different thing. But it's still subjective at the end of the day. Where does this objectivity come from?
The fabric of the universe. I believe ultimately that there is like a system of forms and there is a monad at the center of it. I'm not a Christian. I don't believe in any of that. But ultimately, I do believe that there is a central source of good in the universe. And, we can get into like some metaphysical concept of what that means, but,
I guess like the universe, we can tell things. There are objective things that we can measure about the universe. You know what I mean? We can measure that like a rock is a solid, but science can never tell us what we should do with that rock. That is purely based on human preference, or I guess animal preference, depending on what living organism you're talking about. But like objectivity are things that we can measure and things that we can prove. But what we should do, like the ought statements, those are ultimately always going to come down to preferences.
I I would slightly disagree with you because I do think we can measure moral judgments. Even young children are able to make moral judgments and determine that things like stealing are wrong. You
But
know,
even
they become
like
upset.
stealing, though, you come down to stealing. Stealing would just be the unjust taking of something else. But there are a lot
Yeah,
of people.
but that essentially proves that they have that essentially proves that they have a system of justice already, that they already know what is just and what is unjust.
No, no, wait, no, it's not. That's. I'm not sure. And you spend a lot of time, like a kid will take another toy from a kid. If that were true, if you're
No,
saying that
I'm talking about like young infants, like 6 months old, before that they could have possibly been socially conditioned.
social conditioning happens from the moment you're born. I'm telling you, there are kids that will take a toy from another kid. If it was innate to us that we just know that stealing is wrong, why would that ever happen?
Uh, you know, Nemesius goes into I don't really, there's a lot more academic scholarship about why humans decide to do bad things or wrong acts. And, I think they make fairly compelling arguments. Augustine really goes into this.
Would you like one of those arguments?
What?
Would you like to make one of? I mean, just saying that there's a person that's made an argument. Would you like to make one of those arguments?
Yeah, no, I actually kind of agree with Augustine. So, yeah.
What does
so,
Augustine?
so Augustine, a lot of his philosophy does come from Christianity. So maybe not the best thing, but essentially his argument is, excuse me, if teach. So he basically, I won't go through every premise here. I'll try and summarize it. So he says teaching and learning are always good. So,
But let's just look at that like statement in and of itself. Teaching isn't always going to be good because, for example, people can be taught things that aren't very good. They can be taught to steal. They can be taught how to better steal things. You can be taught to be like a better stealing cars.
yeah, this comes from a more metaphysical point that Augustine is making, is that you can only learn good things. Like, learning bad things, so to say, is not that you are learning, it's that you are refusing to actually accept or learn the good things.
Okay, but let's say let's say a poison, like someone is like some sort of assassin school, and they're teaching how to make a better poison, and then the person learns how to make a poison, how they could poison their enemies or whatever. They've been taught something, but that wasn't a good thing that they were taught.
Yeah, that's correct. Like, but his definition of teaching is like to better oneself. If you are not bettering yourself, you are not learning anything.
But
You,
they're
you
better at poison. They did get better at something. It's just not something that we would consider to be good.
yeah, but you're not bettering yourself as a person.
They have a new skill.
And that skill devours your soul is basically what Augustine would say. And hence you are harming yourself as a person, and hence you are not learning anything to better yourself.
I think this is a different definition of learning, but I appreciate the conversation though. I do. I think that we've gone down a bit of a rabbit hole. I guess I'm just saying that like I think it is possible to learn bad things. Of course it is.
But yeah, I appreciate the conversation as well.
Right, well,
But yeah, if you want to read more into essentially the argument I was going to make, Augustine's book 1 on the freedom of the will is very good.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.